Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. She came with a smile and a clipboard. I gave her a no and a locked gate. That should have been the end. Instead, it was the start of a war between a mountain man with a past and a suburban HOA hell-bent on control. They came for my land. They didn't know who they were messing with. I first saw her standing at the edge of my gravel driveway like she owned the damn place. Arms crossed, blazer too crisp for mountain air, lips pressed in that way suburban tyrants tend to do before they say something they think is clever. I was pruning the pines near the east path, sweat on my neck, hands covered in sap, and there she was, immaculately clean and out of place, like a tax auditor at a rodeo. "Mr. Trenton," she called out, not quite a question, more a pronouncement. I straightened, wiped my hands on my jeans. "That's me." She stepped forward with an artificial smile stretched across her face. "Karen Woodham. I'm the newly elected president of the Silver Pines Homeowners Association. I thought it was time we had a conversation." Here it comes, I thought. The neighborly chat. They never just want to borrow sugar. "Nice to meet you," I said flatly, and not at all nicely. "What can I do for you, Ms. Woodham?" She tilted her head like a kindergarten teacher about to explain sharing. "Jake. May I call you Jake?" "No," I replied. Her smile stiffened. "Mr. Trenton, you have such a beautiful property. Your hotel, Lakeshore Vista, isn't it, is just stunning. We've been watching it grow over the last few years. Really a gem for the region." "Appreciate it." "Well," she continued, clasping her hands in front of her like she was leading a prayer circle, "the community has been discussing ways to better integrate local businesses into our HOA family. And we've all agreed your hotel would be a perfect fit." I let that hang there for a second, long enough for the wind to rustle the trees and remind both of us that this was my mountain, not her cul-de-sac. "Into your HOA," I repeated. "Yes, with a few small adjustments, of course. We'd offer support, advertising in our community brochures, promotional access to residents, even pave a proper road up to your entrance. All we'd ask is that you become a member of Silver Pines HOA, submit to oversight, and share a small percentage of bookings. A cooperative relationship, really." She looked proud of herself, like she'd just offered me salvation and a fruit basket. I stared at her. "You have no jurisdiction here." Her brows twitched. "Well, not yet. But our development now borders your land. The expansion puts you well within our zone of influence." "That's not a real thing," I said. She had the audacity to chuckle. "Oh, Mr. Trenton, it's not about lines on a map. It's about collaboration. We're all part of a community after all." I took a step toward her. "Let me explain something, Ms. Woodham. This land, private. Bought it outright. The hotel, built with my own damn hands. You and your clipboard army have exactly zero authority over me or my business. I'm not interested in your roads, your flyers, or your percentages. You want community? Try respecting boundaries." Her smile thinned until it was barely legal. "You're making this more difficult than it needs to be." "No," I said, turning back to the pine. "I'm making it as simple as it gets." She lingered there for a second longer, like she expected me to change my mind out of guilt or magic. When I didn't, she muttered something about missed opportunities and marched back down the drive in heels that weren't made for gravel. I watched her go, then looked back at the ridge, at the view that guests from all over the damn country paid good money to sit in silence and appreciate. Lakeshore Vista wasn't just a business. It was my reset button. My way of staying sane after 20 years of military engineering and one too many nights defusing IEDs in places God forgot. I'd bought peace. I'd earned it. That evening, I sat on the deck with a glass of bourbon, watching the lake swallow the sun. I figured that was the end of it. A nosy HOA type wandered too far up the hill and got told to back off. Happens. But even then, part of me knew better. People like Karen don't take no as a dead end. They take it as the beginning of a campaign. A week passed. I didn't see Karen again, but something shifted in the air. You know that feeling right before a storm, when the forest goes still and the birds vanish. That's what it felt like. A silence too perfect to be natural. I figured she'd go home, rage into a Chardonnay, and leave me the hell alone. Instead, she declared war. With a clipboard and a grudge. It started with the county's Environmental Quality Department. A black SUV with government plates rolled up mid-morning. 3 inspectors in forest green jackets stepping out like they were about to bust a meth lab in the woods. "You Jake Trenton?" one of them asked, flipping through a folder. "Was last I checked. We received a community complaint regarding your shoreline usage, alleged encroachment on protected wetlands. We'll need to do a site survey." I stared at him for a second, trying to process the bullshit I was hearing. You're kidding. He wasn't. So I walked them down to the lake, watched them measure things, take photos, and poke the soil like it personally offended them. The whole inspection took over 3 hours. When they left, they said, without a hint of irony, "So far, everything seems within code. We'll file the report." 3 days later, another car. This time, the County Office of Building Compliance. Complaint: ADA violations. According to a concerned citizen, my hotel allegedly lacked proper wheelchair access, which was hilarious because I'd sunk 30 grand into custom ramps, handrails, and even an adaptive kayak system for disabled veterans. The inspector seemed annoyed he had to be there. "Honestly, this is the 3rd ADA complaint I've gotten this week from your area. None of them are sticking." "Let me guess," I said. "Same anonymous source?" He just gave me a look that said, "I can't say, but yes." Then came the guest. Middle-aged, polo shirt, khakis, the sort of guy who looks like he breathes HOA rule sheets for breakfast. He booked the most expensive lakefront suite for 2 nights. Didn't speak much, kept his sunglasses on indoors. On the second morning, he asked to cancel early, claimed the ventilation smelled like mildew. Then, by noon, a Yelp review appeared. "Hidden mold, unsafe for families, reported to health department," alongside photos of a single dusty vent in a back corridor we hadn't used in weeks. My housekeeper swore she saw him snapping pictures behind staff doors when he thought no one was watching. It didn't end there. The hotel's Facebook page was suddenly flooded with 1-star reviews, most from accounts with no profile pictures, no friends, no other activity. The reviews all said variations of the same thing: noisy, dangerous guests, disturbing smell from lake, weeds on the trail. One even accused me of harboring illegal parties and fireworks after midnight, which was news to me, considering the closest thing we had to a party was a silent meditation group from Oregon doing breathwork by the fire pit. The front desk staff were stressed. My cook threatened to quit after another surprise health inspection. Nothing wrong found, but 3 hours wasted. Cancellations started trickling in. One guest emailed to ask if it was true we were under investigation for environmental destruction. I nearly spit my coffee onto the keyboard. Something was very clearly coordinated. And every time I mentioned it to someone official, police, inspectors, even my attorney, the answer was the same. We can't prove malicious intent. Could just be bad luck. Right. Except luck doesn't operate in patterns. People do. The real kicker came late one night when my assistant manager, Kelly, called me into the back office. She'd noticed something odd on our hotel Instagram account. Every time we posted a scenic shot of the lake, a new batch of bot-like comments would appear underneath. "Is this legal? Is this hotel even certified? They're poisoning the fish." Then, after digging through Facebook's comment history, she said, "Jake, look at this." She pulled up a screen showing dozens of local accounts, all sharing the same HOA-affiliated page, Silver Pines Neighborhood Watch. And guess who was tagged in every post? Lakeshore Vista. One post even read, "We've warned them. If the hotel won't cooperate, the community will take steps." I stared at that screen for a while, jaw clenched so hard I could hear the muscles creak. This wasn't some nosy neighbor anymore. This was a campaign. And whoever was pulling the strings wasn't doing it for peace and quiet. They were trying to choke the hotel, one inspection and one lie at a time. It was a Tuesday morning when my lawyer called, and that's never a good start to a week. His tone was too calm, the kind of practiced calm that lawyers use right before telling you someone's trying to screw you sideways with a contract from hell. "Jake," he said, "did you give anyone permission to file an easement claim on your property?" I nearly dropped my coffee. "What the hell are you talking about?" Got word this morning. Silver Pines HOA submitted a petition to the county recorder's office. They're trying to register a community easement across your eastern trail, claiming it's a historic access point to the lake. They're citing precedent from the late 80s. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so bold it almost impressed me. "That trail's been closed for decades," I said. "Hell, my property deed shows it as discontinued land. There's even a metal gate blocking it." They're arguing the community still has customary rights to traverse it. It's flimsy, but if it gets on record, it could tie you up in court for months. I hung up, paced for a bit, then stomped up to the attic. The previous owner, old guy named Marvin Doolin, left me boxes of documents when I bought the place. I hadn't touched them in years, mostly because they smelled like dust and regret. But now I had a reason. Took me the better part of the afternoon, but I found it. Folded up in a red envelope, labeled 87 Survey, East Ridge Access. Inside was a full topographic map and a notarized document. Apparently, in 1987, Marvin had filed for an official closure of that access trail due to erosion damage and safety concerns. The county approved it. The trail was decommissioned, not a public right-of-way. Never had been. There it was, on paper, signed, sealed, and forgotten. Until now. I drove straight to the courthouse the next day and filed a petition to counter the easement claim, attaching the old survey and requesting a temporary restraining order on any entry attempts through that side of the property. The clerk raised her eyebrows when she saw the documents. "You sure you want to poke the HOA hornet's nest?" "Honey," I said, "they've already built a nest in my rafters. I'm just setting it on fire." But something about the claim still bugged me. It wasn't just the gall of the move. It was the timing, the coordination. Every move they made was suspiciously strategic, like a chess game I hadn't agreed to play. So I reached out to a guy named Evan who used to run cyber ops for a security firm I worked with overseas. I told him what was happening, the reviews, the inspection pattern, the easement stunt, and asked if he could look into whether any of this stunk of automation or bot behavior. Evan didn't hesitate. "Yeah, man, you're being brigaded. Coordinated social attacks, spoofed IPs, pattern-based complaints. This reeks of an organized smear operation." "By who?" "It's a damn HOA." "Maybe, but it's got a digital backbone. They're using the same phrasing across platforms. Probably have a template. You want me to write a tool to track it?" "Hell yes." We called it HOA Watch. A simple machine learning bot at first, scraping keywords, matching writing styles, cross-referencing account behavior across social media. It wasn't much, but it started painting a picture. Multiple fake accounts, likely all managed through proxies or bots, posting within minutes of each other, always in response to something I posted about the hotel. Meanwhile, back on the ground, I noticed something weird. HOA folks were hanging out near the east side of the property, walking slowly past the fence, taking pictures, pretending to birdwatch. I wasn't buying it. I set up a motion camera hidden in the tree line. First night, nothing. Second night, 3 people in HOA windbreakers poking around the eastern trail, shining flashlights like they were on a treasure hunt. By the end of the week, I had enough footage and data to file a formal motion blocking their easement claim and to start drafting a cease and desist letter against the HOA for trespassing and harassment. But then Evan called again. "Dude," he said, "I dug into the domain registration for one of the fake websites that's been trashing your hotel. Guess what? I don't feel like guessing. It's registered under a shell company based in Boise, and that company is connected to a major real estate investment firm, West Northwood LLC. Ever heard of them?" My stomach dropped. "Yeah," I said. "They tried to buy this land 2 years ago. I turned them down flat." "Well," Evan said, "looks like they didn't take rejection well." Suddenly it all clicked. The noise, the harassment, the fake inspections. Karen wasn't the boss. She was the front. The smiling face while someone else pulled the strings. And now I knew who was on the other end of the leash. I wasn't sleeping much by that point. You don't get rest when someone's trying to unravel your life thread by thread. The hotel still ran. Rooms were full, guests oblivious to the chaos brewing behind the scenes, but I could feel it tightening, like a wire around my throat. That Friday morning, I came down to the kitchen and found Kelly, my assistant manager, already up, pale and stiff like she'd seen a ghost. "You need to come outside," she said. She led me around the back of the property toward the service entrance by the utility shed. And there they were. 4 people in identical dark green jackets marked Silver Pines HOA Environmental Enforcement. 1 was standing by the shed, clipboard in hand. 2 were pacing along the side fence, shining UV lights at the soil like they were CSI agents searching for buried toxins. The last guy, older, probably ex-military by the way he moved, was squatting next to the drainage culvert like it owed him rent. I froze. Kelly whispered, "They said they were here for an ecological compliance survey. Claimed you were notified by email." I don't usually yell before noon, but I made an exception. "Hey!" The one with the clipboard stood straighter and turned, unfazed. Mr. Trenton, good morning. We're here on behalf of the Silver Pines HOA to ensure environmental standards are being met along shared boundary zones. You're welcome to observe. You climbed my goddamn fence, he blinked. That's criminal trespassing, I said. I don't care what you call it. Survey, inspection, yoga retreat. You came onto private property without permission. This isn't shared. This isn't HOA jurisdiction. You have no authority here. One of them started to speak, but I was already dialing. Sheriff's Department, I said, loud enough for them to hear. I've got 4 trespassers on private land. Uniforms, fake badges, possibly impersonating officials. Send someone now. That did it. Clipboard guy tensed, then put his hands up in a half apology. We were told the boundaries were unclear. I've got cameras. Want to see how unclear it looked when you boosted yourself over a 6-foot fence with a metal pole? They didn't answer. I walked them off my property personally, one step at a time, keeping my phone recording the whole damn way. They didn't argue. They didn't run. They just smirked like teenagers who got caught egging a house and didn't care because their dad owned the town. Cops arrived 20 minutes later. I handed over the footage. Officers were polite but clearly uncomfortable. One of them mumbled something about HOA types pushing limits lately. Karen, of course, made an appearance later that afternoon. She showed up at the hotel gate like she was visiting a friend, waved to a few guests like they were part of her constituency. I met her halfway down the drive, arms folded. Didn't take long, I said. She gave a smile so fake it could have come from a wax museum. They were just doing routine environmental surveys. With all the recent complaints, the HOA felt it was necessary to check on potential water runoff violations. I stared at her. You know exactly where my property begins and ends. Your people climbed a fence. That's not routine. That's criminal. They misunderstood the boundary markers, she said, with that infuriating shrug. It won't happen again. Oh, it will, I said. And next time, they won't be walking off so easy. She laughed. Is that a threat? No, I said. It's a promise. You keep coming at me sideways. I'll take the gloves off. She leaned in slightly, dropping her smile. You're not a good fit for this community, Jake. You think being up here makes you immune, but people like you never are. We adapt. We consume. Eventually, everything around here gets absorbed. I smiled back. Well, this place has a history of spitting out what it can't digest. She left without another word. That night, Evan called again. HOA Watch picked up something weird. The fake accounts aren't just targeting your hotel now. They're spreading posts about how the lake is contaminated. It's subtle, but coordinated, using hashtags like Nosy Lakeshore Leak and Eco Emergency. I rubbed my eyes. They're going after the environment now. They're trying to scare people away from the region entirely, he said. You're not just in their way. You're the obstacle to a larger plan. He sent me a PDF, a leaked proposal from West Northwood LLC, dated 6 months ago. In it, they outlined plans for a luxury lakeside development, corporate retreat centers, gated condos, private docks. The name Lakeshore Vista appeared under a list titled Target Properties for Acquisition or Neutralization. Neutralization. I sat there, staring at that word. They weren't just trying to annoy me. They were trying to erase me. I poured myself a drink, bourbon, neat. Sat out on the deck, watching the shadows roll down the ridge like black molasses. And I thought, you picked the wrong bastard to try and neutralize. 2 nights after the fence incident, someone cut my water. It was just after midnight when the pressure dropped. I was brushing my teeth, and the faucet let out a gurgle like a dying fish, then went dry. I figured it was a valve issue. Old properties in the mountains do weird things sometimes. But when I checked the main line behind the generator shed, the valve wasn't just off. It was destroyed. Handle snapped clean, brass mangled like it had been attacked with a pipe wrench, and bad intentions. I stood there in the dark with a flashlight, water pooling around my boots, and thought, they're not trying to sue me anymore. They're trying to break me. I had a plumber on site by sunrise. He didn't say much, just whistled low when he saw the damage and muttered, "Someone really wanted you to have a bad day." Later that morning, one of our guests, nice older woman from Utah, stepped on a piece of glass in the parking lot. Kelly called me out there. We found the gravel glinting with slivers of broken bottle glass. Not just a smashed beer bottle. This was deliberate. Sharp edges scattered in a pattern no one would miss if they were walking barefoot or unloading a suitcase. Took us hours to clean up. She needed stitches. I paid the ER bill myself, but she was spooked. Said she was cutting her trip short. Said the place didn't feel safe anymore. That hurt more than the bill. And then, like a cherry on this toxic sundae, we found the letter. It was left under the door of cabin 4, hand-delivered sometime between midnight and dawn. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper, printed in bold black type. This place doesn't belong to you. Get out before someone gets hurt. Tell your guests to leave too, before the lake takes more than just their money. The guest, a couple from California, were rattled. They showed it to Kelly, who showed it to me, and then they packed their things and left that afternoon. No refund demanded, just gone. We checked the camera feed. No sign of anyone near cabin 4, but the timestamp on the water valve footage. Around 2:40 a.m. Motion blur, but someone big. Male, wearing a dark hoodie, gloves, work boots. Didn't park near the property, had to come in from the woods. I called Evan. "Anything from HOA watch?" I asked. "Oh yeah," he said grimly. Right before that timestamp, 3 HOA-affiliated accounts posted the same message. Some things just break in the wild. The forest takes what doesn't belong. That phrase appear familiar? I read the letter again. Goddamn poets, these people. Evan sent me an update that chilled me. One of the posts was traced to an IP address that matched someone I hadn't expected, Douglas Woodham, Karen's husband. According to Evan, Doug was a former security contractor dishonorably discharged for excessive force during civilian dispute resolution overseas. Since then, several sealed misdemeanors, one harassment case dropped for lack of evidence. He wasn't just Karen's muscle. He was the kind of man who did quiet things behind fences while his wife smiled on TV. I took everything, videos, screenshots, the letter, and went down to the sheriff's office. Filed a full criminal complaint. Vandalism, harassment, attempted intimidation. They took it seriously this time, especially with the injury to the guest. An officer drove up to Silver Pines the next morning and paid Doug a visit. Within the hour, the HOA forum exploded with a post from Karen herself. The Trenton man has declared war on our peaceful community. He's harassing our families, slandering good people, and threatening our homes. He must be stopped before someone gets seriously hurt. Projection, thy name is Karen. But while she was busy playing Neighborhood Joan of Arc, Evan was playing Digital God. HOA Watch got an upgrade. He tied it to facial recognition from our motion sensors, layered in a pattern analysis module, and built a heat map of all HOA activity patterns around the perimeter of the hotel. A digital shield, 24/7. By now, I'd hired private security. Real ones, not the HOA's weekend cosplay patrol. They patrolled in shifts, stayed off the books, rotated vehicles. I wasn't waiting for another act of sabotage. I was setting a trap. And then, just before midnight 3 days later, we got him. The same figure from the previous footage, caught creeping along the side trail, crouching near the utility box with a pair of bolt cutters. One of my guys intercepted him. There was a scuffle, short, loud, and stupid, and then we had Doug Woodham face down in the mud, zip-tied and furious. Sheriffs took him in. I watched from the porch as the cruiser drove off, red and blue lights flickering through the pine trees. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. I knew this wasn't over. If anything, this meant we were finally in the deep end. But at least now the gloves were off. They tried to spin it, of course. The day after Doug was arrested, a post appeared on Nextdoor from Karen herself. No photo, just text, wrapped in that sugary poison she loved so much. We regret the actions of one individual who may have taken things too far out of concern for our community. The HOA condemns all forms of aggression and continues to advocate for peaceful integration and cooperation. Translation, he got caught. Let's pretend it wasn't us. But the real story wasn't in the apology. It was in the silence. In the days that followed, something changed. HOA members stopped posting as often. A few of the fake review accounts vanished. One even wiped its entire comment history in under 5 minutes. I watched the traffic on HOA Watch drop like a rock. Karen was closing ranks. She wasn't just scared of public backlash. She was scared of discovery. And she was right to be, because I'd been building something just as nasty as her little online smear machine. I was working with a lawyer named Angela Klein, sharp, quiet, dangerous in court. We filed a formal defamation suit against the HOA and a separate criminal complaint against Doug for sabotage and intimidation. But that wasn't all. Angela and Evan were digging deeper into HOA finances, vendor records, email logs, and what they found lit the fuse. For one, HOA funds had been used to pay for private legal consultations, specifically with a firm out of Boise known for handling hostile property acquisitions. Same firm behind the shell company that registered that smear website trashing my hotel. Evan traced the digital fingerprint back to a domain hosted on a server registered under the name West Northwood LLC. Now it wasn't just HOA harassment, it was corporate targeting. Karen wasn't leading some grassroots moral crusade to preserve neighborhood peace. She was a blunt instrument wielded by something bigger, nastier, and fully dressed in a blazer and golf course equity package. Then came the break. Angela found it buried in the state's digital archives, an old act passed in the early 90s by the county council, aimed at protecting small tourism businesses from over-regulation by expanding HOAs. It was short, obscure, forgotten. But it was law. It read, "No residential association, community board, or neighborhood entity shall claim regulatory or advisory oversight of any private enterprise engaged in hospitality or tourism if that enterprise predated the formation of said body and resides on land outside its original jurisdiction. In plain English, if your business existed before the HOA and you weren't on their land, they had zero authority. Not advisory, not consultative, none." And Lakeshore Vista, established in 2013. Silver Pines HOA, formed in 2016. It was a silver bullet, not flashy, not dramatic, but fatal all the same. Angela grinned for the first time since I'd met her. We can use this, not just to kill their claims, but to go on the offensive, file for injunctions, demand restitution, freeze their accounts pending investigation. I nodded. Then do it. And we did. First, we served the HOA with a cease and desist backed by the old law, demanding immediate cessation of all regulatory attempts, formal or informal. Then we filed a civil suit in district court for defamation, harassment, loss of business income, and attempted interference with lawful enterprise. Finally, we filed a separate complaint with the State Department of Business and Regulation, calling for suspension of the HOA's operating license due to abuse of authority, misappropriation of member dues, and unauthorized engagement in external commercial suppression. The Sheriff's Department, now armed with Doug's arrest and our security footage, reclassified his charges from vandalism to targeted criminal sabotage with an organized directive enhancement. That put Karen back in the hot seat. Evan kept feeding us more. He recovered deleted emails from a corrupted HOA admin Dropbox. Most of them were boring HOA junk, paint color disputes, noise complaints. But a few. They were gold. One from Karen to a law firm rep. If the pressure campaign doesn't force a sale, we may need to escalate. I'll handle messaging. Have Northwood draft Plan B. Another, even better. We need to keep the hotel owner off balance. Noise complaints, inspections, anything to maintain narrative pressure until acquisition is viable. There it was, in writing, intent, malice, conspiracy. Angela looked up from the files, eyes hard. This isn't just a civil matter anymore. This is corporate harassment through a proxy. This is a RICO case waiting to happen. I leaned back in the chair, feeling the kind of satisfaction only ex-military guys understand when the target finally lights up on thermal and it's locked in. We had them. Karen might have thought she was queen of the cul-de-sac, but she was about to learn what happens when the HOA chessboard flips and the guy across from you used to design battlefield logistics for a living. The smiling mask was cracking. And behind it, something far more scared than smug. Court isn't like TV. It's not fast or dramatic or full of gasps from the gallery. It's procedural, slow, dry. But if you've got the right pieces on the board, it's devastating. And we did. Every damn one of them. The first hearing was packed. Locals filled the benches. Silver Pines folks on one side, quiet but smug. A few guests from my hotel showed up too, bless them. The judge, an old Vietnam vet named Franklin Driscoll, didn't tolerate fluff. He had that grizzled courtroom vibe that said he'd buried more nonsense than most people ever had to smell. Angela handled the opening like a sniper. Methodical, direct, no wasted motion. She laid out the history of the hotel, the timeline of HOA formation, the attacks, the false inspections, the smear campaign. She cited the 1994 statute as precedent. She submitted the surveillance footage, the letter, the records from Evan's AI system. That last one raised eyebrows. "You're saying you have digital tracking evidence of coordinated defamation?" the judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Angela said, "with timestamps, linguistic analysis, and IP matches. The system was custom designed by a cybersecurity expert with prior defense contracts." Evans stepped up to the witness stand. Clean suit, sharp tie, hair just messy enough to say, "I don't like courtrooms, but I know what I'm doing." He broke down the pattern of posts, the coordinated times, the identical language, the flood of anonymous reviews. He demonstrated how HOA Watch linked posts to HOA board members and, more critically, to shell accounts operated by the same IP blocks as West Northwood LLC's digital assets. The judge nodded, impressed. "A first in my court," he said. "Real-time AI surveillance presented as part of a civil defamation case." Karen's attorney objected, of course, claimed the data was inadmissible, that Evans' system wasn't peer-reviewed. Angela countered with a technical affidavit from 2 cybersecurity firms. The judge let it in. Then came the bombshell. Angela played the email. Karen's voice came through the speakers in the courtroom, reading from an HOA board Zoom recording we'd obtained via subpoena. "If we keep pushing him, inspections, fines, social pressure, he'll either sell or slip. Either way, Northwood gets what they want, and we're protected. Just keep your heads down and let me handle the messaging." The courtroom went still. Even some of the HOA members looked surprised. The judge called a recess. Karen left the room with her lawyer, face blank, jaw tight. When we resumed, the tone had shifted. Angela filed an emergency motion to freeze HOA discretionary accounts, pending investigation into misuse of funds. She provided financial records showing that HOA dues were funneled to cover Karen's private legal bills and Doug's prior fines. Then came the state regulatory rep. He confirmed that HOA environmental inspections carried out on my land were unauthorized, that the so-called IDs used by Karen's crew weren't recognized by any state agency. Some were just laminated printouts. In short, they faked authority. Judge Driscoll leaned back, his voice bone dry. "So let me get this straight. This HOA, funded by community dues, under the leadership of Mrs. Woodham, engaged in coordinated defamation, staged unauthorized inspections, enabled trespass, and misappropriated funds to drive a private property owner off his land to benefit a third-party developer." Angela stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Karen's lawyer tried one last Hail Mary, calling her misguided but not malicious. A leader overwhelmed by conflicting interests. The judge shook his head. "I served 26 years in the Army," he said. "You learned to spot a chain of command. Mrs. Woodham wasn't overwhelmed. She was running point." The verdict came quicker than expected. The court awarded me $3.8 million in damages, economic, reputational, and punitive. Karen was removed from her post and placed under criminal investigation for conspiracy, fraud, and abuse of authority. Doug's charges were upgraded to felony sabotage and intimidation under the organized crime statute. West Northwood LLC, now exposed as the financial puppeteer, faced regulatory audits and pending class action lawsuits from other business owners they'd tried the same tricks on. But the best part? The court issued a binding injunction. Silver Pines HOA was prohibited from engaging in any external commercial enforcement activities in perpetuity. Their powers were rolled back to basic grounds, maintenance, and event planning. No more private inspections, no more neighborhood watch invasions, no more pretend sheriffs with clipboards and laminate. They were neutered. As the judge banged the gavel, Karen stared at me from across the courtroom. No fire left, just the slack-faced recognition of a long, slow defeat. I didn't smile, didn't blink. I just nodded, because this wasn't revenge. It was restoration. The week after the trial felt like coming up for air after being held underwater for a year. Silver Pines HOA was officially under receivership. A neutral third party appointed by the county reviewed every penny spent, every complaint filed, every late-night email Karen ever typed. The HOA board resigned en masse, some out of guilt, most out of fear. A few tried to pivot and play the victim, posting statements like, "We didn't know what Karen was really doing," but their names were on too many approval forms to walk away clean. Doug pled out. 7 years in a medium security prison, no parole for the first 3. Karen tried to play hardball, claimed mental health issues, legal overreach, harassment from me. None of it stuck. The state brought charges of organized harassment, criminal conspiracy, and falsification of legal authority. She got 15 years. She sobbed when the cuffs went on. No cameras, no crowd. just the quiet sound of a life collapsing. Silver Pines didn't die exactly, but it stopped pretending it was anything other than what it was, a neighborhood with a bloated sense of self-importance. After the injunction, the county revoked their HOA's authority. A new structure was created, a municipal-style association under direct county oversight, stripped of enforcement powers. Their motto changed from preserving our community to serving our residents. Cute. At the entrance of the old HOA office, now converted into a county liaison hub, they posted a sign, "Notice, Lakeshore Vista is private property. No trespassing by court order. Violators will be prosecuted." Beneath that, a QR code that links to a copy of the full judgment. It became something of a local legend. Bookings at the hotel doubled over the next 3 months. People wanted to stay where the HOA got their asses handed to them. Some were just curious. Others came because they were tired, burned out from their own fights with neighborhood tyrants, desperate to spend a weekend where the only rules were don't be an asshole and clean up after yourself. I leaned into it. We launched a new service line, Silence Retreats. 3-day programs for executives, overworked parents, burnt-out teachers. No phones, no screens, no HOA drama. Just cabins, trees, and a deep sense of you're allowed to exist here. I hired a few new veterans to help run the place. One of them, Luis, used to work logistics for a combat unit. He looked over the whole Lakeshore Vista operation and just said, "You built a base. Now you're fortifying it." Damn right I was. Evan kept HOA Watch running in the background. He offered it as open source for other small businesses dealing with smear campaigns. A few small hotels in Arizona and Colorado picked it up. One restaurant owner in Maine emailed me a thank you after using it to shut down a wave of bot reviews from a rival. We called it Digital Neighborhood Watch with real teeth. I got letters, dozens, from all over the country. People writing about their own HOA hell stories, some heartbreaking, some ridiculous. One guy said his HOA tried to evict him over a flagpole that was too emotionally provocative. Another woman said they ticketed her husband for excessive laughter during a backyard birthday party. Apparently, the country was full of Karens. And maybe that's why this story hit so hard, because it wasn't just my fight. It was everyone's who'd ever been told, "We make the rules and you don't get a say." I didn't start this war. I just refused to lose it. And in doing so, I learned a hell of a lot about what happens when people push back the right way, with proof, with patience, and with a big enough hammer when the time comes. Now I wake up with the lake mist rolling in like a soft warning. The guests stretch on the yoga deck. The fire pit glows every night. The cabins are full, the inbox is clean, and the only thing patrolling the trails is a retired German Shepherd named Moose, who's never met a guest he didn't love or a HOA rep he didn't growl at. Peace didn't come easy, but it came. And it's staying.